Room. We are helping you gear up for the new school year, talking with different superintendents throughout the Houston area, bringing you information you've been asking and going directly to the source. Joining us this evening from Galveston and Galveston ISD is Superintendent Dr. Kelli Moulton. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Mia. We appreciate KHOU giving us this platform and an opportunity to hear from those in Galveston and maybe some others who are willing to reach out through media. So we're ready to go.
Good deal. We want families to feel comfortable. We want them to feel empowered and our kids ready to go and learn in this different environment. Real quick for us, give us just a brief overview of how day one is going to start for Galveston ISD students.
Well, first of all, day one for Galveston ISD students will be on our regular calendar. We're anticipating that we adopted the calendar last January, but it will look different, as we all know. We have two different platforms that we'll offer to families. One is our fully remote platform that we're calling SAIL, Students Accessing Innovative Learning, and it is intended to be able to reach out for the entire school year. So you have that opportunity as a family to choose SAIL, and you can go online on our gisd.org website and select that right now. And then the other platform is our on-site platform. But we know that as a state, we're not quite ready to invite everybody back to the classroom at the same time. So we're taking advantage of what the governor and the commissioner have provided to us in a 4-week transition. So the students and families that select on-site will also be virtual students for the first 4 weeks and then transition back face-to-face over the 4 weeks with everybody that chooses that to return on September 21st.
Okay, so parents have the option to continue with online learning. You have two different programs. You were saying that parents should choose one. Is that window going to be open for some time for them to make that selection? Do they need to have that done by the first day of school, if not before?
Yeah, they really need to have it done a little bit before so that we can be fully prepared with staffing. We've had our SAIL program open now for 2 weeks. We're leaving it open through the remainder of this weekend. And so they should be able to go onto the website and make that choice. If you don't make the choice, you'll be going to the on-site version. And again, we're going to take advantage of the 4-week transition and start that off as a remote site also. But during those 4 weeks for our on-site students, we'll be bringing back small groups of students to become familiar. The ones that we think most need that familiarity are the students that are new to the campus, our pre-K, our kindergartner, those that are going into middle school and those going into high school. But we also know that we have students that have special needs and special programming that are difficult to meet in a virtual setting. So we'll start inviting them back in small groups, also starting on the 24th of August.
Okay, and I keep looking down in case you're wondering, or if viewers are joining us and wondering, what is she doing? What is she consumed with? I'm looking at our feed to get to your questions. We know many of you have questions. The first question for you, Dr. Moulton, is from Candy Stevens. She asks, for parents with jobs and elementary age children, for her in particular, kinder and fourth, is there any other option than missed virtual instruction recordings and assignments due by midnight each day? I guess kind of what are the rules there for parents with elementary age children and missed virtual instruction recordings?
So I'm hearing a couple of different things from Ms. Stevens. There's our SAIL program, which is a fully remote, which has a deadline each day for turning in work by midnight of that day so that we can collect and identify who's in attendance. And then we have the virtual piece that will be for the 4-week remote. And that may look a little bit different depending on who the teacher in the campus is. And so you'd want to have that conversation. But I think the meat of her question goes to, what are we doing for parents who have always relied on school to be able to allow them to go to work and their children to be fully cared for? Yeah, that's the hard one. And that's what we are not providing at this time. So that 4-week transition is an attempt to make sure that all of our buildings and all of our protocols are healthy for our students to come back on September 21st. So we're taking that full amount of time. But we do have some organizations on our island that are helping with that. They're setting up rooms where students can go and participate in their virtual learning, and there will be adults there. There will be adults who understand our learning system and will be able to help. Some of them are fee-based. I know that Moody Early Childhood Center will have a student program. East End Preschool will have a student program. Boys and Girls Club will have a program where students can go and be there and access the internet and be able to have supervision while their parents are at work. We understand that this is a hardship. It is a hardship for all of us. We have our own staff that have children, and they're going to have to maneuver this and make arrangements as well. But we believe that we're doing the best we can at this time given the current health conditions.
It sounds like you've organized some community partners there to help fill in the gaps with adult supervision for those children who do not have it. Where's the best resource or place for people to go to get that information? Is it the Galveston ISD website, or should they go directly to a few of those organizations that you mentioned?
I think the organizations themselves are going to have the details, but we have a family and community access coordinator, our FACE coordinator, Dr. Vivian Hernandez, who can certainly put you in touch with those organizations. And you can find her on the gisd.org website. You can call our main number at 766-5100, and you can be put in touch with Dr. Hernandez.
Okay. Real quick here, I want to go back to our virtual instruction because there are a lot of questions there. What will classes be like for students? Will they have live teacher interaction like a traditional classroom period, or will they be recorded lessons that the students will work independently on?
So the simple answer to that, Mia, is yes to both. And so we will have teachers interacting with students at certain times. For example, our fully remote actually has a schedule that's posted, and it's expected that a student would spend approximately 20 to 25 minutes with that teacher in classroom, getting information, and then have some time to work on their own to complete assignments. That would happen at several different intervals during the day. Certainly less time for the little ones than the older ones, just because your capacity to stay engaged changes as you get a little bit older. For our on-site, but the 4-week virtual, that's going to depend a lot on the flavor and flair of the teacher at their campus. This week, teachers are reaching out to students to welcome them to school and are going to be giving them some information on that. But yes, there will be both at both sites. You're going to have some time when you can interact with the teacher. You're going to be able to see the kids in your class, much like we are right now on a Zoom setting. You're going to be able to see their faces and have those conversations. You're going to have supervised breakout rooms where you can go and have small group instruction or small group discussion. And then there's going to be time for you to be able to work on that independently. We know that there are parents, like we had our first question, who are going to not be at home during the traditional school time. They may want to take advantage of that teaching and learning later on when they can be there with their child. So those lessons will also be recorded and archived so they can pull those down. But we will also have office hours for all of our staff, so parents can check in live with a teacher. They don't have to just guess at what the instruction or the expectations are. They will have an opportunity to dialogue with that teacher during office hours on most every single day.
Okay, so we have that. Let's talk about now attendance and grades. Is it business as usual?
It pretty much is. There are some changes when we talk about testing. We have state testing that will require maybe some in-person testing, but we're working on fixes for that. The whole state is working for fixes on that. Our LMS, our learning management system, allows students to take testing online from their courses and their teachers, and it differentiates and moves the test questions around so that it's less likely that somebody would try to game a system in order for a test. Maybe some of our high school students are really smart and they'd want to do that, but we have plans for that. But attendance looks like this in a virtual setting. It is that you're on the LMS, the learning management system, and you're engaged, and we have metrics that show us how often you're on the system, where you went, what you did, how you participated. That's one way you can get attendance credit. The other is that you're having dialogue with your teacher. Perhaps it's during that live instruction and you're there in class, the teacher can see you, have conversation. Maybe it's a phone call later in the day, or a group discussion later on that's not during that class. That's a second way to get attendance. And the third way in a virtual setting is to actually turn in your work. So if you're doing your work, but maybe you can't be online and meet up with your teacher that day, but you've submitted something through the learning management system, or one of the other ways we have to do it, like it could be as simple as taking a picture of some work that you've done and send that in to your teacher. That would be enough evidence of learning to show that you're doing something, and so you would gain attendance for that. Then, once we get back to school, it will be very similar to our regular school. If you're there in class, you get attendance. But we do know, and it's hard to explain because we've never been through this before, but we are going to have days that we're going to have to close the building or a classroom because of viral infection. We're going to have time to clean that up. So once school gets back and we're on site and we've got to close for those periods of time for cleaning and to get healthy again, we'll revert back to a little bit of remote. And again, it will be, are you doing those three things? Are you interacting with the system? Are you talking to your teacher? Are you turning things in? And that will count for attendance too.
Got it. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but Patricia Martinez says, my kids will be new to the district. I signed up for SAIL, but would like for them to go back in September if they can, meaning if the district is able to enter into on-campus learning on September 24th. Does she still have that option to then have in-person on-campus instruction?
Yeah, I would love to talk with that parent, because one of the barriers or caveats we have to SAIL is that you cannot return to the on-site until the end of the 9-week grading period for the little ones. So if you want your children to go back to school on the 21st of September, which is our planned date, I would suggest you sign up for the on-site or withdraw your SAIL application. You're still going to get some virtual remote during those 4 weeks of transition, but then you would move very smoothly in with the same teacher into on-site instruction on September 21st.
That's good. Let's talk more about the school day and classes and such. Electives, things like theater and choir and other programs, especially our middle school and high school age students would participate in. Will there still be electives, those types of classes?
Yeah, we're planning on a full accompaniment of courses. Not only our electives, but our dual credit and our advanced placement courses. All of those we plan to be able to offer to our students. Certainly it's going to look different than it did when we started school last fall, but we have amazing, incredible, creative teachers that are putting together programs right now. So I do anticipate that people will feel satisfied that they're able to get the courses that they want. Now, there are some things where students are going to just have to come in. For example, we have students enrolled in dual credit cosmetology. In order to be a stylist, you're going to have to do some of that work in a laboratory setting. So you're going to have to come to our Galveston College classroom to be able to do that. That same sort of thing fits with welding as well. There are some things you can do online, but you're going to need to come into the laboratory in order to finish those. So we want to make those available to both our virtual as well as our on-site students. And working with the teachers, staying in contact, asking our families and our students to really reach out to your teachers and our teachers to do the same. I think we're living in an age with our smartphones that we can do that pretty easily. Thankfully that we have those, and we can just really ramp up our communication efforts so that students don't lose out on their experience at school just because we're in a pandemic.
And what about extracurricular activities?
Yeah, we're open for all students on extracurricular. I think the barrier that we're coming up against right now has to do with transportation, because if you're choosing to be a fully remote student, we don't have bus routes set up to bring you to practice after school or before school. And so parents and families are going to have to figure that out on their own, at least for today's answer. I mean, tomorrow might change, we might get smarter tomorrow. But athletics, extracurriculars are open to all students, regardless of which pathway they choose. We were all actually challenged this week in terms of, can we do a beginning band class? Can you learn to play the trombone or learn to play the flute virtually? Yeah, you can. We're going to make that happen. I'm going to take this just one step further, Mia, too, is that we are offering our counseling services as well online. If you think lately we've all had to do some type of teledoc or telemedicine opportunity, I think that's going to serve us well with our students who maybe need a little extra help and encouragement from their counselors or from our social emotional learning team. And we're going to have those lessons and those opportunities available for our students and parents as well.
Certainly their emotional well-being is just as important as their academic well-being.
And we've been away from them now for 5 months. And that's a long time to not have that confidant, to not have that person that you really need to share with and that can understand you. We're certainly not the only, person in town that can fill that role, but for many of our kids, we are the safe space, and we want to be able to open that up again and make sure that we're serving students in all ways.
Speaking of serving students and the different services that the school district provides, I want to touch real quick on special education students. How are you still continuing and offering services to our special education students?
So we pride ourselves in having a customized educational experience for each child, but it's even more important with a student who has special needs and has special programming that we need to provide for. So this last 2 weeks, and including this week, our special ed staff have been calling out to parents to reestablish where we are in their individual learning plans, to make sure that if we have to hold any type of meetings with the parents, that we get that done, and that we can assess where the child is in order to provide any services that may close gaps that we've had in these 5 months, or maybe part of the programming that they've been promised throughout their educational career. So we are committed to be able to continue to serve these students as the law requires, but not just because of the law, because it's the right thing for these kids. And we have, again, amazing staff. We're continuing to augment that staff and build that staff up so that our students get the services they need. I think, this is a group of students and families that really enjoy the communication, and we need to make sure that we're serving them by letting them know what we're doing, when we're doing, how we're doing, and to be able to fill any gaps. And we definitely are committed to that. In fact, that's one of the groups that will be coming back in the early transition period in order to meet and serve their needs.
Got it. Getting back to some of our viewer questions now, and this is helping transition us to once we do return to on-campus learning. Holly Sharp Whittington says, I'm just curious what the plan is for districts that are determined to return face-to-face. What's the plan when kids start testing positive, other than staying home and quarantining? So what's the plan once you return to campus and you have a COVID positive?
So let me back up just a little bit from that. If your child is not feeling well, they should not be attending school. And this year, we have a unique opportunity to continue to serve them because will already have remote set up. And so if your child is ill and shouldn't, they have a runny nose or they have a fever, they should stay home, because we don't know how susceptible they are to the next virus. And we don't know if their symptoms then would lead to a condition where we would need to be concerned about COVID. But we also have flu coming up, and we always are concerned about that. So your question then is, if a child is a lab confirmed positive, first of all, that child is not allowed at school. We need to know from the parent when that happens. We have information that we have to share with the Galveston County Health District and a set of steps after that. If the student is in the classroom when that happens, we remove the student from the classroom. There's an isolation nurses area. We ask the parent to come pick up the child because they just received a positive. We send communication home to everybody in that school. And then we go a step further to look at the students who were in that classroom, and they get a differentiated letter to let them know. Then based on that, we look and see who was a close contact. If a close contact is made, perhaps the student in front, behind, to the right, or to the left, it is likely that that letter will recommend that those students quarantine. So you've got the student tested positive at home on isolation. They're following their doctor's orders. They can return to school within the time frame, which right now is 10 days after the positive comes forward, and at least 3 days, at least 1 day without elevated temperature, without medication. The other students then are on a 14-day because it takes time for the virus to catch up to them. There are ways to come back to school without waiting for your 14 days, and that's outlined in our Returning to Learning plan, which is on the GISD.org website. And we're happy to converse with our parents so that they know a little bit more about that. But in Galveston ISD, we've created a position. Our COVID coordinator is taking the calls when people test positive or when they have some question about maybe somebody that they've been exposed to. What are their next steps? And then this position is helping guide the leaders in the district to make sure we know which communications to send out, how we notify parents, what we tell them, and what our next steps are. We do not have a scenario where an ill child can come to school and we would care for them. Nice. That's not a scenario that we have.
Another question, this one is from Laura Taylor. Laura asks, will middle schoolers switch classes when we go back to the buildings?
So we've chunked our schedules for our middle school and our high schoolers. And they would go to 4 different classes grouped in pods at each of the middle schools as well as our high school. So it's a reduced amount of time in each of the pods. Given that we have the remote learning opportunity through SAIL, we anticipate that we'll have no more than 15 students in a classroom. They would get instruction. It might be their teacher giving them instruction and then switching to another class, and then you would have a confident and competent adult in there to help them with their independent learning while the teacher of record is in the other class instructing. We're going to maybe have some different things like that. Remember, we haven't done this yet. So a lot of this is speculation and planning, and that as we move forward, we're making the best decisions we can with the information that we have available at the time. But yes, there will be some movement. It will be staggered, so it won't be bell rings, everybody rushes to the hall and runs to the next class. It will be very orderly. We will work to maintain the 6 feet distancing. We want to make sure that all of our students, regardless of their age, have some type of face covering. We are encouraging parents to provide their students their own face covering, but we have it at school as well, and we'll provide it to you if you don't have any. We want to make sure that it stays relatively within the dress code standards. We don't want anything that would be controversial on a mask or a face covering, but we want students to show a little bit of their personality that way.
Wonderful. Another question, this time once again about middle and high schoolers. Selena Miranda asks, when will schedules be released for middle and high schoolers?
Yeah, we're working on that really fast, Miranda. I wish I could tell you what that is. But remember, we're still selecting SAIL applications. And as we continue to move through, we're trying to weed down to and dissect down to where those kids can go and the teachers they would have. There will be schedule changes. There will be some changes. We want to make sure that we can even out the classes. In many ways, we don't even know all the students that are coming back to school because they may choose to go somewhere else. They may choose another setting that they haven't informed us of. And we don't want to leave one class, with maybe 18 students and another class with 2. So that could change. And this is where we really appreciate the grace that you've provided to us, that we've been able to prove ourselves trustworthy over the time that you've been with Galveston ISD. We want to make sure that we can serve you in that way. So I know that counselors at Ball High are taking calls every day about that. I would encourage you, when as this week winds down and we get into next week, if you really need to know what class you're in and who all is in the class with you, continue to call the campuses. But they are working hard. They're putting those master schedules in. They're building those classes. And we want to be able to take care of your children in the very best way possible.
We have yet to talk about devices, laptops, digital devices the children will need to participate in online learning. Emily Ojeda asks, when will borrowed laptops be available?
Okay, so we have some Chromebooks and laptops in our district and they're ready to go. And individual campuses have schedules that you can find on our gisd.org website to know when they'll be handing those out. We are like an incredibly fortunate school district to be able to have as a partner the Moody Foundation. And the Moody Foundation pushed forward our one-to-one initiative and provided us with a gift of over $1.9 million this year to buy additional Chromebooks, laptops, and hotspots that we can make available to students. But here's the issue. Everybody in the world is looking for a computer and a Chromebook and a hotspot right now. Our vendors indicate to us that the Chromebooks will be available by the end of August. That's good. That's coming up quickly. We're expecting those. We have a shipment of 1,200 hotspots that came in today. So we are in the process of making those ready, and then we'll be able to loan those to students as well. In this interim, when we don't yet have enough devices for each child to have their own GISD device, we would ask that our parents continue to provide what you have at home. We know that there were some devices that were home driven in the spring, and we would ask that you continue that. If you have multiple children in your home, we understand that that can be very difficult because they both have to be on at the same time. So we have those devices for you. Please contact your individual campus. I saw again today that we had campuses that put those schedules out, and we want to be able to get those in the hands of our students as quickly as possible. And not only do we have these 1,200 hotspots that we'll be able to make available to our students, but we have 9 different buses that will park at different areas in our community that have long range access to the internet. And the password is on the front of the bus, and students can be in their home or their apartment, or maybe they've got a space outside near the bus where they can go and access that as well.
Trying to make it as accessible as you can in this environment. Let's talk real quick. We've talked about devices. We've talked about what things will look like on the digital side, what things will look like in person. Something that a lot of people are concerned about, of course, in addition to the academics, is also nutrition and children's meals. Schools are often a great place for children to get a well-balanced meal. So for those children who count and depend on those school lunches, have there been provisions and arrangements made to help them get lunch while they're doing virtual learning?
Absolutely, there is. We've been very fortunate all summer long, through the spring and in the summer, to be able to do curbside pickup for our families. In the summer, it's a little bit different because any child 0 to 19 can come and get a meal from your local school district. But once school starts, we do have to verify that you're a enrolled student in our school district in order to make that happen. So during this 4 weeks where our on-site is virtual and our virtual is virtual, we will be having curbside meals on Mondays 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches for each student that presents. And it can be just the adult presenting an ID, or the lunch number can be punched into our point of sale system. And the parent and the child then can get that and then go. And that will happen kind of in the lunch hour, the 11 to 12:30 hour. But we've also set up one site that will happen afterwards, so 5:30 to 6:30. We know that families sometimes are working during that time and they can be made available. So this is something new for us. We saw one of our neighboring school districts doing this, and we thought this was a great idea because not everybody is at home at the noon hour to be able to pick up the meals for their children. So Mondays are the day. We'll have 4 locations around the island that will happen at noonish, and then 1 location after work hours, and you can pick up your 5 breakfasts and 5 lunch on Mondays.
Okay, we got it. In closing, before we let you go, just kind of advice and resources parents need to know about. Should their school be the first point of contact? Should they rely on the Galveston ISD website? What's your best advice for parents in these last few weeks before we start school?
So we are pumping information out through our website, through social media. We're sending blasts. There's 2 things I would suggest. As an enrolled student, you are in the Skyward system. Your family is in the Skyward system, and that information about how we can contact you is only as good as the information that's loaded in there. If you've changed a number, if you've changed an address, you need to make sure that's up to date, because that's the information we're using to reach out to you. If you don't feel like you're getting the outreach through the phone calls, through the texts, and then go onto the website, because we also keep the information there. As I said before, our campuses are super busy getting ready for the school year, but not too busy for you. And so that is the best place. If you call my office at the support center, I know a little bit about a lot of things, but I may not have your exact answer. We can help hook you up with the right people that do, but you're going to save time if you call the actual campus. I do want to mention just one other thing, because there's a group of people that we serve on the Bolivar Peninsula, and they won't be able to come to the island to get their breakfast and lunch. We have a plan for them, so they need to call their Crenshaw school people and find out what that is, but they'll be served their breakfast and lunch as well.
Good to know. Dr. Kelli Moulton, with Galveston ISD, thank you so much for your time this evening, and we wish you the best this school year.
Thanks. We look forward to a great year.
Thank you.